All right, let's pause this for a second. We're not ready. Oh, wrong thing paused. Let's see. There we go. There we go. Welcome everybody to Certify Lights April webinar, the first webinar of our series. It seems like we tend to start our webinars a little bit too late in the season, or I guess in the year. I feel like it's always for a good reason though. You're probably tired of Christmas. We're definitely tired of Christmas, and we just want to take a break from everything just for a little bit. But we're super excited to get our partner exclusive webinar series back on track for the year. We do have one every single month, going over a lot of different topics. So make sure you sign up for each one of those. Anyone that you can't make, no worries. Like I'm doing with this one, we will record it, we'll send it out, I'll have a transcript and all that fun stuff. So today we're going to be talking about year-round lighting, and what does that look like for your Christmas light company, or your lighting company, or maybe your pressure washing or window cleaning or whatever the heck you're doing when it's not the Christmas light season. One of the most popular questions that I tend to get asked from people I just know out, not work related, when I tell them, oh yeah, I work for a Christmas company, I stopped telling them that because I started getting the same questions. A Christmas company, what does that mean? Okay, now I have to explain everything. Goodness. I talk about Christmas enough. I don't want to talk about what the heck I'm doing as well. Or the most popular question is what are you doing outside of Christmas? It's a great question. Well, now that we've got Certified Lights tends to keep us pretty busy, um, working on different upgrades and content and all that other stuff. But when we're not doing that stuff, we're doing other lighting, permanent lighting, landscape lighting. Landscape lighting tends to be our most popular. We're doing event and wedding lighting. That's always Sean's favorite. Um, and then we've got bistro or patio lighting. And today we're actually going to be talking about a little bit of outdoor audio as well. So if you guys are ready, let's go ahead and jump on in. I'm going to do my best to keep this to 30 minutes as long as I keep the other guys from getting too chatty. And then if it does go over, thanks so much for your time. You can obviously stick around. We'll keep going until we've gotten through all the content. And then we will have a section at the very end for any kind of questions. You guys can ask us literally anything. And, if we got the answer, we'll give it to you. If we don't have the answer, we'll figure it out and we'll get it to you, right? And it doesn't have to be just what we're talking about today. It can be Christmas. It could be some of the new changes that might be coming to the partnership. You've got 3 people on the certified team. It's a great time to bend our ear and answer any questions that you guys have. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. So if you don't know, my name is Ashley Garber. If you don't know who I am, my first question to you is why the heck not, right? I talk to partners all the time. You should know who I am. If not, let's go ahead and connect after. I've got 2 other knuckleheads with me, so I'm going to go ahead and let them do their own introductions. We'll start with Sean. Go ahead.
Hello, I'm Sean. I am an instructor at the training programs that we do during the year, and I'm the field supervisor for the installations when it comes to Christmas lights, landscape lights, wedding lights, or event lights. And yeah, I've been certified for about 3 years now, and I love Christmas lights.
There we go. All right, Lewis.
Hey everyone, my name is Lewis. I'm the product operations manager. So my job is basically everything that's product related when it comes to ordering, shipping it to you. That's on the certified light side. When it comes to assisting Sean, I'm the guy to make sure that he gets everything that he needs, any special type of lighter and all that. Basically anything when it comes to anything on products. I'm your guy. So if you have any questions, please reach out to me.
That's the guy. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into the different types of lighting and decor. Right now, we're going to start with permanent lighting. Now, there's a ton of commercial grade options out there. We have gone through the training specifically with Blue Hopper. We've gone to the Omni training. We actually recently just went to the Invisilights training out in Roanoke, put on by Lights for
Oh,
Decorators,
oh,
Lights for
Lights
Christmas.
at Wholesale.
Lights out. It's so hard. There's so many similar names to try and keep up with. But Joey Murphy put on a really awesome training over the Invisalights. Now, there are other options out there, right? These are just the three that we've gone to. Installation wise, we tend to lean more towards Blue Hopper. Personally, I like Blue Hopper. I'll let Sean share how he feels about it. I think he's got his own preferences. We all have our own preferences here. Personally, I really like the Blue Hopper line because it does have landscape lighting with it. I find a lot of value in offering that to customers. When it comes to brightness and stuff like that, it's a little bit tricky sometimes, right? I think a lot of permanent light companies kind of trick you. And I know that sounds really bad, and I mean that with all the love and respect to those brands. But why is it that every picture it seems like the house is white? Right? Am I tripping here? I feel like I'm not, right? White, it's either a white house, white siding, white brick, or they'll have uplights with color changing uplights. So it's like, okay, is the lighting system really that bright? Or are you just going with two different methods to make it appear that bright? And then obviously you've got low voltage and high voltage. So Sean, I know you know quite a bit about one of the leaders. Now we're not going to knock anybody. We know who's out there and who's not out there. But Sean actually got some really good info on jellyfish lighting. So Sean, you want to go ahead and share that with the folks?
Yeah, so jellyfish lighting was the first one to really introduce permanent lights to everyone, and it is very popular. It's what people think of when they think professional installation permanent lights. Now, when jellyfish first started, it was strictly 48 volts, so it did require electricians. So a lot of people kind of got scared of it. They weren't qualified, and then I just recently found out that they are offering 24 volt and 36 volt. And when they released that, they also brought in bistros and they also brought in landscape lighting fixtures. Now, the landscape lighting fixtures, they seem to have a wire hanging off of the fixture, which is a little tacky, and it's only open to the landscape guys, cutting those wires. So I think that it could prove problematic. But so as far as jellyfish, there's a lot of other brands that offer the exact same light style. Um, the main thing that changes throughout different brands, such as Invisalite or Omni Lights or Bright Home Lights, is the controller is what changes. All of them are an aluminum track, and then all of them essentially have the same controls. But the thing that changes is one, the spacing. So jellyfish, I believe, is a 10-inch spacing. Omni is an 8-inch spacing. Invisalite is a 12-inch spacing. So you'll have that different spacing. And then another thing, of course, is the controller. That's going to be the main difference in everything, because essentially all of these permanent lights that come in an aluminum track, you can interchange the controllers. So that would make it would go from a jellyfish system to an Omni system if you had an Omni controller. And then also kind of dabbing into that is, so when you see the pricing from these companies, we just recently went through the Omni training to see what their product offered. And so they advertised it at $8 per foot, and that was amazing because jellyfish is upwards to $12 to $15 depending on how much money you buy in with. And but the pricing of the controller and the transformer is where they get you. So at the end of the day, most of these brands are going to be closer to the $12 a foot range. So that's just one thing to look at. But as far as jellyfish, there's a ton of other competitors where you can get the same look without the same money.
Now, Blue Hopper doesn't have an aluminum track. Theirs is plastic.
PVC.
PVC.
Classic
There we
PVC.
go. It's like, I don't think plastic's the right word. I don't want to make it
PVC.
sound bad. PVC. There we go. That's why I had Lewis join us today, everybody, to make sure he can correct all my product knowledge, him and Sean. Um, So now when it comes to pricing, the installation for those, $30 is really like the lowest that I've seen out there, what people are talking about. Now, yes, you can go lower, right? It's all dependent on how much you want to make on the job. I would say probably 35 is probably about the average, at least for Blue Hopper. I'm not 100% certain what Omni's charging. That Sean can probably speak on that a little bit better, or what contractors are charging for Omni. 45 is definitely on the higher end. You can charge more than that. I haven't seen anyone talk about doing more than $45 a foot. I don't know if you guys have seen it. I would say if you're doing $45 a foot, that's got to be a pretty complex install. A lot of cuts, a 40-foot ladder work, I would assume. But I mean, if the customer is willing to pay for it, go for it, right? $45 a foot, heck yeah. Now, we have actually offered some payment plans. So in our particular market of Dallas, we actually lost, what was it, two of our HOAs last year. Does that sound right, Lewis?
When it comes to
Um,
what?
to
Oh,
permanent
that,
lighting.
yes, that's
Yeah,
fun.
so we lost two of our HOAs last year. They weren't major HOAs, um, but it's like, okay, hold on, like we're starting to recognize that contractors are reaching out to HOAs and offering this option. So for me, knowing that half of my business is HOAs, I either need to start offering that, or I'm going to potentially lose more of my customers, right? So we have offered permanent lighting payment plans. Now, that's totally something if you can afford to do that. You know, our installation business does a lot more revenue than I think most installation businesses are doing. So we're comfortable with doing a 3-year payment plan. It's good reoccurring revenue as well. But yeah, I think I jacked it up to about $45 a foot. I mean, for me, if you're gonna, take a 3-year option, payment plan option, there's got to be a little something in there for us too, right? I would think. So, um, now one of these questions I have on here is Govee worth it? No, no, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. But, and you're gonna think I'm so crazy because I know there's a lot of gurus out there who are gonna tell you stay away from Govee, stay away from. Go do it. Go install a Govee job, because it's going to tell you why you don't want to do Govee, right? The other thing is if you've been to our training, you've probably heard me talk like, what's on the schedule? You know, if you don't have anything scheduled and someone's willing to pay you to do a Govee job, bills have to get paid, right? Employees still have to get paid. If you don't have employees, you need to get paid. So me personally, I'm probably a little bit more flexible and maybe saying yes, depending on what the schedule looks like. But I would encourage everyone, if you've got the time and the customer's willing to pay for it, most of the Govee customers tend to be on the cheaper side because they're,
And can I add one thing about the Gobi
yeah, of
lights?
course.
So a good thing about the Gobi lights is, it opens up the conversation with the potential customer. So what I like to do is, I'll talk to the customer about the Gobi lights, and then I'll also introduce them to other lights. And a lot of the times, they've never even seen any kind of permanent lights. So then I teach them and I tell them the differences about Gobi with all the exposed wiring and about how long it'll last and what it looks like, especially with the 15-inch spacing. So I always take that as an opportunity to introduce them to other permanent lights because sometimes they just don't know.
That's very true. I mean, Sean built a really nice demo kit, and it has the three major lines, or that I have listed here. Obviously, you may be doing other types of installs. I know Oleo. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. I know there's a lot of few. I know
Oh, yeah.
there's quite a few of our partners who install that system, and I've seen it, and it looks really good. I just haven't looked at it for us. But Sean will take. It's like in a like a rifle, like a rifle carrying case, I guess, which we need to
Yeah,
be
rifle
careful.
case.
It's a
We're in
case.
Texas here, right? So we need to be careful about carrying a rifle case around with us. Um, but yeah, no, he's got it all laid out, and he can show the customers and let them choose. I mean, we know that pricing wise, it's going to be pretty similar. And if they prefer the look of the aluminum track, or if they prefer the look of the skinny track that Blue Hopper offers. If the customer's willing to pay for it, I don't want to give them too many options, but this is a permanent system that's going to stay on their house for, the rest of the time that they're there, more than likely. So, I think it's worth trying. Pablo made a good point. He installs Govee lights in the chat, but he just doesn't warranty them. If you don't got, we know that there's a demand for that service. We have to recognize that. So we can either try it and do it, see if we like it, and if we don't, then now you have the knowledge of why your customer doesn't want that system, right? If you've never installed it, how do you have the knowledge of what the wires are going to look like, or what the diodes are going to look like at night? For me, Govee, I love their actual lighting, like their bulbs and stuff. I have them all in my house. But and it's so easy to pair. It's probably the easy. I've got the bistros. Sean just installed the bistros at my house. It's the easiest system to pair. But man, the permanent lights just create these really sharp V's, and it's so easy to tell that that's a
That
Govee.
spacing.
It's just the first time I saw it, I think was last Christmas, and I remember me and my husband pulling over, and I said, I don't know if they've got like a trim or something, and it's creating that, until we drove by during the day and I saw all the wires, and I was like, that's an actual permanent lighting system. Oh, I hate it. But it's popular. Now, one of the questions I get, or I hear a lot from installers is, oh, well, what about the Christmas lights? You're getting rid of your I'm not here to mock anybody, so maybe I don't do that. But as I mock them, sorry if you've asked me that question. That was someone else that asked it. Well, you're just selling your Christmas customer. Look, if your Christmas customer is already going down the rabbit hole of permanent lights, they're probably already interested. So they're going to go get that service. Either you're going to provide it or someone else is going to provide it. But the other thing that we have to remember is that's going to go on the roof line, right? If we can focus on more high level, high profit margin items, wreaths, garlands, snowflakes, window
Light
outlines, that
bursts.
kind of stuff, you don't ever have to pull the ladder out. The safety risk is gone. You're not gonna get the greenery look from permanent lights. You barely even get the Christmas look, really. Like, nothing that I've seen really truly compares to, the OG C9 bulb on the roof line. So sure, go ahead and sell them other stuff. If it's a commercial job, if it's HOAs and they're going to that, they probably still have it in their budget. So maybe offer displays, right? Offer them something else. That customer just doesn't magically poof disappear, because there's going to be other pieces there that they're going to want. Tree wrapping, bushes, stake lights. I mean, there's a ton of different options. So I would encourage you not to just think, oh, I'm getting rid of my customer by offering permanent lights. So there's our little bit of tidbit info on permanent lighting system. Brian said, I like to join the Facebook user groups for all these brands and learn the pros and cons of each. Very smart. Because there are pros and cons to both of them. Like I said, I like Blue Hopper, but I have an Android. I can't even freaking pair my own lights. I have to go to Lewis, who has an iPhone, and say, my stuff, can you help me? Because they don't have it on an Android. So
Be my phone.
there's going to be pros and cons to each of them. It's smart to do that research. Landscape lighting, like I said, that was our most popular that we're doing outside of Christmas. There's way too many options out there for me to go over. There are just from your basic spots to well lights to washes to mini spots to sconces. I mean, there's a ton of different commercial grades. Now, if you don't know, Certified does have a small line of what we call the basics, right? We've got a couple different spots. Our Spot Pro, our Pro fixture, it's called a Pro fixture, right, Lewis?
Yep.
Yeah, it's a Spotlight Pro.
Yeah,
Sure.
Spotlight Pro will actually fit the Blue Hopper MR16, which is a pretty chunky bulb or lamp. Sorry, it's hard when you're doing Christmas lights and landscape lighting. So that is a nice, it's a really nice brass fixture, but we don't have everything. We've got a well, we've got two path light fixtures, and we've got two um,
Spotlight
spots.
fixtures.
Sorry. Yeah, there we go. We also have a few different stainless steel transformers. So if you are interested, we do have that available. We actually started doing landscape lighting about 5 years ago. We started that during COVID, trying to help keep us busy. I was the one out there selling it in the summertime with a mask on in Texas July weather. It was horrible. I don't know how I didn't quit, but I sure wanted to in those moments. But it is nice revenue. It is not an emotional service. It's a little bit harder, right? It's not to say it's impossible, because obviously it's possible, but the customers are very different. They're not, most people, unless you're in the lighting industry, most people don't wake up and be like, "Ooh, I really need some of that landscape lighting," right? Um, I've got a ton at my house. My dad's like, we don't have any more room for lights. What are you trying to do out here? Like, why are you putting more out? I don't know. Anyways, so product costs are really, really going to vary because there are so many options out there. I mean, you can get a fixture for 20, $30. You can get that same fixture from a whole different line, different manufacturer, different specs, for $300. It really just kind of depends. It really, really creates it, makes it a little bit more difficult to, sorry, hold on, let me move this out of my way. It won't. Okay, there we go. It makes it kind of difficult when it comes to pricing. It's hard for me to say, oh, well, these are the exact prices. I would say 250 to 600. 600 is really on that high side. That's going to be a really specialty fixture, I'd say. Average fixture prices, Sean, $200 to $300 a fixture.
As far as when making the sale,
Yeah.
yeah, about 200 to 300, and it also just depends on exactly how many fixtures they want. So if they're going upwards to 10 fixtures, then you would drop down the price some.
Yeah. Um, the location matters, right? Are you doing downlighting on the house? Does it require a 40-footer? Are you doing moonlighting, right? That's something that we don't like, right? It can be a pretty difficult install. How far are these lights going? You're gonna have to dig trenches. So when it comes to pricing those kind of services, it's more than just the fixture. It's gonna be the difficulty of that install as well. I wouldn't say we're necessarily pros, really. I mean, obviously we're great at Christmas lights. Landscape lighting has been a little bit more difficult for us. Obviously, I'm all about being transparent. We have done a lot. I will say kudos to Sean specifically. Louis, you're awesome too. But Sean came in and really kind of flipped us on our head when it comes to landscape lighting. Increased the prices quite a bit. Found other options. Sean will sell just about anything and say, okay, we'll figure it out, right? Which is great when you don't have Christmas light money coming in. So, I mean, even we still turn to, the experts in the industry, who provide a lot of really, really great content and a lot of really, really great information out to those who are wanting to get into the game. So, Ryan Lee, for example, extremely, extremely knowledgeable when it comes to landscape lighting. So if you are looking to get into that, there's a ton of options. Certified obviously can support you, because we've seen a lot and we've done a lot. But when it comes to for me, it's always interesting just how technical landscape lighting can be, right? When it comes to different degrees and the different specs, and I mean, there's just so much to it, you know. And you really have to have kind of an eye for design. Not just anyone's going to be able to go and throw a spot on a tree and say, okay, well, that's good. It if it's too far back, if it's too close, if it's angled, I mean, all of that can really throw off your landscape lighting. But it really is an easy install. I personally prefer landscape lighting over Christmas lighting, because one, it's not nearly as much of a headache during the season, right? It's not as crazy or as hectic. And I really like the outcome of it. So anything you guys want to add to the landscape lighting piece?
Pretty much
Um,
covered in.
well, a couple of things that I can add is when you looking at a good landscape lighting customer, you know, how serious they are about purchasing landscape lighting, or kind of gauging where to put their budget, because a lot of people don't like to share their budget. A couple of things to look at is, what does their landscaping look like? So if they have really nice looking landscaping, then they're going to want to showcase that. So you see a tree that's been previously trimmed, they're going to want to showcase that tree. So just you got to look out for the small things, especially in those backyards. Look for the gathering areas. Look for anything that might be a potential safety hazard when pitching path lights. So, and then another thing that you can look at for customers is if they have a lot of solar fixtures. People usually try 2 to 3 different kinds of solar, because every time they go to Costco, it says 5 times brighter, and then so they just keep on buying them and keep on buying them. So like once you come in with an actual wired fixture, uh they're really like wowed and amazed. And then you take their solar fixture and you place it right next to that wired fixture, and then you're like, look at the difference. And that it pretty much sells itself at that point. So it's just about noticing all of the little things, what kind of person you're talking to, and what kind of activities they engage in, and whatnot.
Yeah. That's a good point. At one of the jobs that that I had sold, obviously years ago, right? He had these big, like, I don't know, like boulders or rocks or something. And I noticed the way they were placed, I just looked at them, and I don't remember the customer's name, not that it matters, but I said, I think you really love these rocks, don't you? And he said, oh my God, I absolutely love them. I said, I could tell. So let me show you what these are going to look like at night. I mean, we sold him like 6 different path lights in the back. He had a really large backyard, but he really, really loved having them on those rocks and lighting those pieces up. So like Sean said, being mindful of what people like. If you are going with a RGBW system like the Blue Hopper MR16s, certified sells those too now. Just FYI.
With
I
the
promise that
commercials, Ashley.
this isn't a sales pitch. I promise. I promise. But it's important for you guys to know what we've got, right? So I always try to tell the guys, or when I was out selling, is look and see what they've got, or do they have a Texas A&M flag out? Do they have a sports team or something like that? Because now you could say, oh hey, oh, you're a Cowboys fan? Oh, me too, right? It's one of those sales tactics, right? Oh yeah,
You
me too.
are.
Let me show you what this system can do, and just boop 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 boop, and it's all lit up, right? So using the system to sell itself obviously is going to be ideal. Now, when it comes to bistro and patio lighting, you guys are going to get me, because the pricing usually falls between X to X, and I forgot to update that. So we're going to have Sean update that when we get to when we start talking about pricing. So there's really not a ton of commercial grade products out there. Um, I thought I found one. What was that, like a year ago, Lewis?
Yeah, when we found out.
Yeah. So I was like, oh man, I found this really great one. It's finally commercial grade. I don't want to buy from Home Depot. Not that Home Depot's horrible, right? But for the amount that we're charging, I want to make sure that the customer feels like they're getting a good quality brand. So I bought it from this lighting company, and it came in an Amazon box. And I remember thinking, wow, this is really odd, because we had actually purchased previously, because I like to buy from different places, test them out. Um, I had bought a set from Amazon to test out. And this box came from this company that I purchased, but it was Amazon, and an Amazon box. I was like, that's really odd. And I opened it. It was the same freaking lights from Amazon. All they had just like renamed them on their website, and I was like, okay, like I feel a little bamboozled, right? Now there are commercial grade options out there, like Sean was talking about. Jellyfish has come out with their bistros. Blue Hopper has a bistro line. Oh, it's part of Minleon's because they're linked together, right, Lewis?
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, Lighting Boss is another distributor when it comes to landscape lighting, and they've got a few different things. Um, I don't, I mean, let me say, how do I say this? I'm a big believer in being friends with other distributors, which is why I talked so highly of Joey Murphy earlier. I haven't met Ryan over at Lighting Boss, but I will say Lighting Boss is probably one of my favorite landscape lighting websites. Um, the customer service over there is just really top notch. They've got a really nice line of products. Obviously, please buy from me, but Lighting Boss does have some really nice options. So they do have Dow where they've got brilliance options when it comes to the bistros. Um, Brilliance in general tends to be pretty pricey. And I think I think they have retrofit options where you can replace the bulb. Some of them are fully integrated and you can't change it. You'd have to change the whole line, but I know that they've got some retrofits. So check them out if you're interested. Product costs are going to vary quite a bit. And before we get back to how to price those, I'll let Sean finish on that. One thing that I see a lot in like the lighting groups on Facebook are people coming in with I don't really see the E12s too often, but the E17s I see quite a bit, right? So if you don't know, your E17 is going to be what type of bulb, Lewis?
For the 80, it's gonna be the S14s, I believe.
No, the E17 is going to be your C9 bulb.
Oh,
Sorry, you
yeah,
can't hear
that's
me.
right.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry, Lewis. Didn't tee you up very well for that one. So that is
Sorry.
your C9 bulb. So I will see people come in with G40s or G50s and string in your C9 socket wire and leave that up year round. C9 socket wire is not rated for year-round usage, right? It's rated for up to 90 days. So that really should be a temporary install. You know, I would not go in and tell the customer, yeah, it's cheap. I get it. You probably have some C9 socket wire already in your office, your warehouse, or your garage, or whatever from your Christmas light install. So it can be really easy to want to fall back on that product. But it's going to fail, right? It's only a matter of time. The sun, depending on where you're located, the sun's really just going to eat it up. So I personally am not going to recommend that. Go with your E26. That's going to be more of your S14 Edison style, right? Like we have in this picture here. So that's going to be more long-term. If you are going in with a long-term installation, guy wire should be used. And please, for the love of God, do not install any high voltage lighting over a pool. It looks cool. Looks awesome. I love the reflections of the lights. It is not worth it. In most states, they do not allow that, whether it's against the law or against code, obviously. But at the end of the day, it's just a safety hazard, right? So I am not going to recommend you do either one of those. So pricing, Sean, I know you just went out to a bid yesterday for bistros. What are we at when it comes to pricing per foot when for the bistros?
So just like with anything else, it's going to depend on exactly how much lighting they're looking for. There is a few things to factor in is if you're having to install poles, if you are going over a pool. So you do have to definitely well, you can go over a pool as long as it's 12 volts and
Low
you have to be
voltage.
yeah, it has to be low voltage and it has to be at least, well, here in Texas, it has to be 12 foot above the pool. So as long as you're taking those things into account, then you can get away with it. And then, so of course, another thing to consider is going to be how far of runs you're having to do, just because you might need to, cement the poles that you're putting in just to make sure that over time those lights aren't bowing. But typically for installation, I've found $9 to $12 a foot to be a good point, only because people aren't expecting to pay a lot for bistro lighting. Um, so you really have to sell them on a good service. Let them know that you're going to be putting in, the turnbuckles and the wiring. Let them know it's going to be stainless steel wiring. That way it's not rusting or anything like that. So you just got to sell them on the safety aspects, on the professional installation, and so you can meet them at that $9 to $12 per foot. And a lot of people will try to buy their own lights, or they will, because again, they're shopping at Costco. They see bistro lights. We could just hang these up, and then so they'll go ahead and purchase. I've found that about $6.50 per foot is going to be good for the actual labor side. But again, it's there's a lot of variations that you're going to have to consider. So just working with how much time you have on your schedule, how busy you are, how badly you want to get
Mhm.
that customer. Because I always think about a customer, once they get one set of lights, everything else gets dark. So then they want more lights and more lights. And so they'll just call you for years to come once they start noticing more dark areas around their home.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, yeah, you could just go to Walmart and get. I mean, there's like a ton of different styles now when it comes to
Yeah.
when it comes to bistros. Like,
They're like I've seen them in the auto parts section.
yeah, I've seen some
It's
with like
weird.
butterflies. It's like, I mean, I guess, but also no, right? So that's the struggle is when you're trying to compete against consumer consumer style lighting, right? Like Govee, like the Walmart bistros. We have to be aware of the failure rate and the longevity of those products. So wedding and event lighting, Sean's absolute favorite. So there's a ton of
Boo.
fixture. There's a
Marriage
ton of
is
fixtures.
overrated.
Ask him how he really feels about it, guys. Yeah, so the okay, so there's a ton of different options out there. When it comes to lighting specifically, you've got your standard up lighting, gobos. So if you don't know what a gobo is, a gobo will project like Mr. and Mrs. Garber, right? It'll project that onto a wall or on the floor or ceiling or wherever. Pin spots are usually used to light up cakes or floral arrangements or centerpieces. Chandeliers, depending on the type of install and where it's going. So there's a lot of options out there. Um, we actually did a training probably about 2 years ago, Lewis, right, with Jeff Larcombe. He is, I know
Oh
he's got a
yeah.
Christmas light company, but he actually did a wedding lighting or wedding and event lighting training, and so we attended that. A ton of great info. Now, granted, he's in like Napa Valley in California, which I think is probably a really, really sweet spot to get married in, right? Lot of money in that area in general. But he's got a really, really successful wedding and event lighting business. So he put that training on. If you are interested in getting into that business, I would highly suggest because he goes over like um, building poles that you would connect these lights to and how to do like the lighting, like with the lighting tunnels and tents, and I mean just a ton of information. So if you are going to go into that, definitely reach out to him. That you've got the Chauvet.
Chevette.
There we go. Chauvet,
Chevette.
Rockville, V Show. Great brands that you can buy for most of these types, especially like the uplighting. They are expensive, right? This isn't going to be like a 25, 30, $50 uplight that you get off of Amazon, which is exactly where we started, right? For us, as like, okay, well, does it really make sense for me to invest all of this money into something I'm just starting? I need to kind of test it out, make sure it's going to work. So we put a lot of those things through the ringer, and then eventually we upgraded. So really great options out there. Very, very lighting heavy, but you have to remember that lighting is not the florist. Lighting is not the DJ. Lighting is not the officiant or uh, the caterer. So it's a little bit lower on the list unless they've worked obviously with in the lighting industry, because then it matters a little bit more. So just keep that in mind. And you're usually scheduling at least a year out for your lighting installs. So now for a really well-planned wedding, right? So a year out is not uncommon. You do have seasonal dips in the wedding business. So for example, engagement season usually falls around Christmas time. Wedding season is usually like May, June, July, August timeline, which is why it's a really good add-on. The worst part about doing wedding lighting is the timing, right? So you are having to set up very, very quick. You're not setting up by yourself. You're also setting up while the florist is trying to set up, and while, the mom of the groom and everyone's kind of running around. It's very, very busy, very hectic, and very stressful. And usually you only get access same day. So it's got to be perfect, right? This isn't like Christmas lights where it's like, okay, no worries. It's not 100% perfect, but it looks good still. No, this is someone's wedding day, right? There's a lot of pressure when it comes to, it's not your wedding day where you're like, oh, okay, this is someone else's that they're hiring you for. So there's a ton of pressure when it comes to weddings. And then the worst part is generally you have to break down that same evening. So midnight, right, Sean? Midnight, 1 o'clock, having
Yep.
to undo hours worth of work that it took you earlier,
Yeah.
and you got to hustle because they're trying to get out of there too. They're not going to wait.
Throw that light, throw those lights in the truck and go.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we took wine barrels out, and then you're like, "Ugh, do I
Oh
really
yeah.
want to do this anymore? Like, this is kind of a pain." It can be a really great add-on. Just know that it definitely comes with a lot more stress than you're at. It's way more stressful than Christmas lights. Christmas lights
Oh
comes
yeah.
once a year. I mean, unless someone just loves to get married all the time, you might ruin someone's perfect wedding day. And so they're scary, right? But is emotional, right? So it's got the emotional buy aspect, just like Christmas light says. People may be a little bit more willing to invest in that dream look, the fairy style lighting that they see on Pinterest. And your current products, you've got many lights in stock, right? You've got the C9 wire. This is where those G40s and those G50s really come in perfectly because it is a temporary install, and they're much lighter than your E26s or your S14 bulbs. So you can generally go a little bit further without your poles starting to turn in. Okay. But just know the pros and cons behind that service. So we talked about doing some outdoor audio stuff. You guys are probably thinking, what the heck, outdoor audio? Like, that's weird. Um, Lewis went to a training last year, put on by a company who's unfortunately no longer doing outdoor audio training. But we did that like it had to have been in like August or something, right, Lewis? I think it was late.
Yeah, it was definitely coming up to almost Christmas. That's why they kind
Yeah.
of was like trying to push it through, but it was definitely helpful. I definitely learned a lot from it. It turns out that it's essentially the same process as installing landscape lights. Obviously, there's a little bit of tweaks, and then there's a little bit more process when it comes to getting the right things like different channels. So there's a left and right channel, of course. So that's gonna basically double the wiring. But essentially, it's clamping. It's the same. It's connections. It's all the same thing as if you would do a landscape, which I found super neat. Um, Definitely something that you should consider in checking out. Where that's what I'm pushing for to Ashley, that I want to also kind of push also on that. But
Yeah, I
but yeah.
think we got into it a little too late last year. So full transparency, we haven't even sold one of these jobs, right? But I know what the product costs are. So, like I talked about, Lighting Boss, they actually have an outdoor audio training. So, if you are interested, go check it out with them. They sell the system that we trained on was with True Audio. They actually do sell True Audio. I looked at it earlier and I didn't see any in stock. So I don't know if they're just waiting. We'll see what happens with, maybe they're just waiting on the product coming in, China tariffs. I don't know. Hopefully they do bring it in because that's something that we've been pushing a lot within the last couple weeks. And I was watching one of Ryan's videos earlier, and he made a really great suggestion, which is when you're installing your landscape lighting system, you already know that the wires are all going to go in the same place, right? As for the outdoor audio, because it's all low voltage. It's same wiring. Um, Telling your customer one of two things, right? Number one, hey, we'll provide a free demo for the outdoor audio if we do an install. Or, hey, do you mind if we listen to some music while we're installing? And you're using the same system. So the kits that they've got, it's got I don't think it has the like the controller, so you'd have to purchase that separately. But it was like $1,000, maybe $1,200 for like a full set. So you've got four, I think it had four speakers and a subwoofer, I believe. And some of those subwoofers you actually bury underground. So that would kind of suck because you have to dig a really big freaking hole. But I think it's a really great option. I would suggest you guys go check it out because we're going to be checking it out. If I sell a job, you sell a job, and we can talk together, right? And maybe grow this piece and provide more support. So, but knowing that it is low voltage, I think is almost. I mean, it's almost makes too much sense to add, right? It's the same system that you're already used to installing. Now, what's going to really change is going to be your clientele and the type of customer. Not every customer is going to be able to afford that. So if the system itself is, let's say it's $1,000, you're adding on maybe up to $500 um, for the controller and all that stuff. Two times your cost, you're already at $3,000. So that's you probably need to be. I would imagine a system like that's going to be closer to about $4,500 to $5,000 fully installed. So that's not going to be for your average Joe Schmo who's making $60,000 a year. Some people really like to entertain, so we don't want to rule anyone out. But you're going to want to be really mindful about the type of customer. So that's where your Christmas light customer can really come in handy, right? Christmas light customers generally have that disposable income. They may be more inclined to bring on a system like that. One thing that Ryan said that resonated with me is customers don't really know that they want an outdoor audio system until they see it, until they hear it. So using one of those systems as a demo kit, right? Buy it, use it as a demo, and then now it's paid for, and you either buy another one or you install that. Letting them actually listen to it and say, "Ooh, you know what? I think you're right. I think that is a system that I'm really going to want out here." So, not a ton of info when it comes to the outdoor audio, obviously, but some of the early stages and something to definitely check out. Now you have an idea of pricing, you know where to go. Go check out Lighting Boss, lighting-boss.shop. Check them out. All right. So let's talk about marketing methods for these. Now, we have to keep in mind that this is very broad, right? There's a lot of ways in bringing on these different types of customers. Permanent lighting can be a great option for your current customers. Yard signs do work for permanent lighting. Obviously, it's going to be a little bit harder in SEO. People that are actively searching for that service, as long as you're updating your website with good content consistently, they'll be able to find it that way. Current customers, obviously, for your landscape lighting, yard signs and door hangers. I know it may not make a ton of sense of having those together, right? But when I'm talking about yard signs, there's two ways, right? So one is, okay, I just did this install. The house is beautifully lit. I'm going to go ahead and leave a yard sign in that customer's yard after I've done the install. Maybe get one of those cheap Costco lights like Sean's talking about. Like, oh, hey, you've got this left over. Let me go ahead and use this. And you just shove that stake right in front of that yard sign, so your yard sign's illuminated at nighttime too. Or doing it, Christmas style. Go find a busy intersection and pop a yard sign right there. We actually just bought a bunch of them through the new certified marketing channel, right? The certifiedmarketingmaterials.com, which if you don't know about, you'll probably be hearing about soon. Go put those out at intersections. When I bought ours, I put like a different number on it because I'm worried about people going and leaving negative Google reviews over stupid yard sign because people can get weird about certain stuff. Digital marketing, Google and Facebook ads, talking to Gage, our GML Media, our Facebook marketing affiliate, he will tell you it can be hard to do Google ads correctly, or just in general for landscape lighting. So be really mindful of that. That's coming from someone who that all he does is Facebook ads and manage Facebook ads. If he's giving you that concern, I would be concerned about it a little bit too. It's not to say it doesn't work, but I mean, you're just, mindlessly scrolling on Facebook and you see it. Do you really want landscape lighting or is it just convenience? Evening demos are very popular and are usually offered for free. So you can, but if you're going to do that, you need to make sure you pre-qualify your customer. Sean absolutely hates doing demos. He's got a demo tonight. They suck during this time of the year because it doesn't get dark until like 9:30, right?
Well, it's better if it gets darker later, even though they're never better, because when it gets dark early, you really don't even have time to go home. And then, so if it gets darker later, at least it's on the end of the day rather than in the middle.
Yeah. Now, Sean will sit here and tell you he doesn't like doing demos, but Sean likes his commission checks, and Sean does close at a higher rate when he's doing demos. Can't argue with the numbers, man. You can't argue with the numbers, right? So
Yes.
offer the demos. Just make sure the customers have a good idea of what that system's going to cost. If they're talking about if they're talking about doing 6 spotlights across the front of the house, and you're charging $300 a fixture, that customer needs to know it's going to be around $1,800. And if they're not willing to spend $1,800, do you need to go do a demo? Right? If the customer's not willing to spend $600, you definitely don't need to go do a demo, right? So keep that in mind. Bistro and patio lighting, current customers, digital marketing, same thing like the Facebook. So be careful with that. Wedding venues do install bistros, or so you can go to them and say, hey, I'll do this. It'll be a one-time charge, or you can put them on some type of reoccurring. That can also be good for permanent lights. Right, we've seen some people going to permanent lighting for their wedding venues. Your event and wedding lighting, the knot wedding wire, that's mostly used by brides and grooms or whoever's getting married. It's all, both of those websites are owned by the same company, and it is called Wedding Pro or something like that. If you go to the knot, if you go to
Oh, it's
Wedding
Wedding
Wire,
Pro.
either one, it's which one?
It's Wedding Pro.
Wedding Pro, yeah. So you can actually manage both of your listings under one website, which is really nice, but it's a little bit expensive, right? I think it's like up to $200 a month. We ended up canceling ours because again, like we know we love lighting, right? But it can be a little bit hard to compete because now DJs are starting to offer up lighting as an add-on. So for me, I didn't really see the best return, but it wasn't also something I feel like we really dedicated enough time to. And sometimes that's just how it goes, right? So if you guys have a little bit more time and you're willing to really invest more into it, it can still work out. Same thing with the weddings going direct. Telling them, look, let me become an exclusive vendor for you. I'll give you a kickback, right? Or, can I put some info out here? Or can you call me and I'll install every time and you just upcharge the bride and groom? They can offer a lighting package, but you're the one that they're contracted with to do the installs. Now, reaching out to those people is going to be a lot of phone calls or walking in, cold call methods, right? Becoming the outdoor cat. hunting for your own food. And then obviously SEO. Outdoor audio, current customers, digital marketing, same thing. It's not that digital marketing doesn't work, right? It can just be really difficult. And I think if you're not managing it properly, it can get really out of hand, right? And then SEO. Now, you should always, if you don't see, you should see one thing very common on here, right? Your current customers and your website. Max out your customer list. Always. Your customers should know that you provide all of these services. And if they don't, you're doing your company a disservice. Okay. And then updating your website. Don't put the same boring stuff. You can't have ChatGPT write everything. Okay. Google will know. Google knows everything. So try and make it a little more original. Don't have it where it's the same content. If you're using a really popular website that creates websites like 180 sites. If you're using their platform, it can be very, very similar. So you really want to make sure you're standing out with good content. And remember that SEO is a long-term gain, right? It can be really great. It'll be worth it. But it's not something that's going to happen overnight, right? So our Zeek, our SEO affiliate and our Google ad affiliate, recommends if you're starting for Christmas lights, you need to start working on your SEO in like March or April. So you see what kind of timeline we're working with here. If you're going to be working on your website for landscape lighting, well, we know landscape lighting has its busy moments throughout the year as well, at least here in Texas, right? So springtime, busy. Summertime, it's too hot. No one wants to go outside. You don't want to go outside, even just come to work, okay? And then it starts to pick back up again in September because, it's no longer hot as hell outside. You can actually go out and enjoy it. So we start to see an uptick. So if you're working on your website right now for landscape lighting, depending on your market and how many competitors are in there, you may not see the results for your SEO this September. You may not see it until spring of next year. So just keep that in mind. Pablo, I know you're here. Bill, you're in this area. Alfonso, you're in this area as well. It's just a little bit more complicated when you are in such a large area. Brian, you're out in Bend. Not as large as Dallas, right? Let's say you don't have competitors out there, but there's definitely a little less than Dallas. So just keep that in mind. So I know I said 30 minutes, and I sure as heck did not do 30 minutes. So I'm sorry. Thanks so much if you held on. Now you guys see what these guys have to go through when I talk to them all day. So what kind of questions do you have? Do you have questions? If you do, we are here to answer anything and everything that you got. So go ahead and drop it in chat. If you don't, I hope you found a lot of useful info. At the very minimum, enjoyed listening to us talk for an hour. The May webinar, well, I'll be sending some of that information out probably within the next week or so. Going on vacation, so I'm going on vacation next week, so I have to get it out before then. Any questions?
Does anybody in here have landscape lighting on their home? We know you do, actually.
Okay.
Lewis has some.
You got landscape lights, Urbina?
I do actually.
Nice.
From here.
I'm gonna
I think I
need
sold them to
some.
him at a discount.
Thank you. It's Ashley Love's employee discount.
5% off.
2.5 and I have to install them.
Yeah, pretty much. Yep. Mateo's gonna have to cut this part of the recording out, but it's fine.
Wait, Mateo's here?
No, but it's still recording.